Welcome and welcome back everybody, Tabletop Toki here, and in today's video I'll be going over my plays from October 2024. This was a pretty quick month with only 53 plays of 43 different games, but I was able to try about 20 new games. Before we jump into what those games are, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Noble Knight. Without them, especially slow months like this where my schedule is crazy, I definitely wouldn't have the ability to acquire and try out so many new and interesting games that really excite me about the hobby and that I think will be a great fit for the channel. So if you haven't already, be sure to click the link down in the description and check out Noble Knight for some awesome deals on new and used games. That being said, let's jump into it. So this month I did have a first play of Windmill Valley, which is a Euro style game. The big thing about this one that I love is it has an action selection wheel with two different cogs where you can build a little engine, select one or the other, or chain off of them, and that facilitates a whole bunch of Euro-y goodness. So I'm really excited to play this one more and hopefully get my own copy. I also had a first play of Astra, which interestingly enough is similar to a flip and fill game, but instead it's really kind of area control, where you are filling in certain stars on constellations. And while it may seem like the ultimate goal to finish each constellation and get it into your tableau, oftentimes it can be good to only have a majority but not finish a constellation in order to get the different boons or scoring bonuses when those constellations complete. The resources on this one were very tight, and I'm on the fence of whether that's a good thing or not, but we'll find out with more plays. I also had a first play of Compile Main 1, which is a 2-player line battler game. I have no experience with Air, Land, and Sea, which is the game that a lot of people have been comparing it to, but I will say that although I'm usually not a big fan of this style of game, I found Compile to be very accessible. I love that you can mix any of the different decks together, and with no prior knowledge about what they do or how they could work together, you can really kind of learn on the go. I found it to be very accessible and very straightforward, and I'm excited to see what more content they release for it. Wilkens Warehouse is a cooperative game with a real-time element. I really thought that memorizing 35 different icons of tiles would be challenging. However, because of the storytelling that goes with it, this was actually the easy part of the game, at least for myself and my group. The challenging thing was matching all those icons to different customer orders at the end of the game with a timer. This is honestly a really cool, fun activity game, and the different challenges that you get for each day of the week that dictate how you can put out tiles made for some really awesome and memorable experiences. Glass Garden is a new Button Shy title. I have a full solo preview of this up on the channel if you want to learn more, but essentially it is a puzzle game where you are creating a terrarium. Grand Austria Hotel was a first play for me as well. Speaking of Euro-y goodness, I have to say that I really love dice drafting. In this case, the dice that you roll at the beginning of the round not only dictate what actions are available, but the strength of the action based on the remaining dice. So there was some really interesting planning with that. While I have played a lot of Raiders of the North Sea, I had never previously played Raiders of Scythia. I will say that if I had never played Raiders of the North Sea and started with Scythia, then I might not like Raiders quite as much because there is a little bit more complexity with everything that's going on. But because I played Raiders of the North Sea first quite a few times before trying Scythia, I did feel that one main thing was missing, which was the combat and interaction with the different Jarl cards. I am more partial to the Viking theme and artwork in Raiders of the North Sea as well, so I'm a bit biased there. But overall, I thought that Scythia did a really nice job of encapsulating a lot of the great things that happen in Raiders of the North Sea, including some of those expansions, and putting it all together into one cohesive experience. Moving right along, I also had a first play of GemGter Galactic, which is a new title in the GemGter series of roll and write games. Shout out to Luke in our Discord for putting together our community challenge for this month, which featured GemGter Galactic. It was really cool getting to see how you could use those Tetris pieces to mine in space this time with some exciting new upgrades like bombs that explode and then can trigger chain reactions. I just really love how puzzly and combo-y the GemGter series is, and GemGter Galactic was certainly no exception to that. Endogenesis was a game that was introduced to me. While I did like the art, I wasn't a huge fan of the gameplay. It was very take that, we ended up playing the cooperative mode, which just felt very cut and dry and a little limiting. An interesting idea and theme, but the gameplay was quite lacking. Finca got a makeover recently. I had never played the original game, but I will say that despite the updated look, the gameplay certainly shows its age. It's basic resource collection and order fulfillment, and while it wasn't necessarily a bad game, it was just very straightforward, and I think for me personally, a lot of the enjoyment that I got out of playing the game really came from the group that I played with and the dynamic and dialogue that we had back and forth versus the gameplay itself. The Artic is a two-player abstract game from Uchi Bakoya. This was originally created half as its own game and half as an addition and half as an expansion for Aqua Garden. I really loved the asymmetry here. The penguins have an abundance of different pieces that can move around on the board, but the polar bears only have, I believe it's 4. The trade-off though is at the beginning when you're drafting your different powers and movement abilities, the polar bear will actually get more of those options to play the game with than the penguins. I'm really excited to try this one out more and see all the different combinations of cards that you can get with abilities and movement. I think it makes for some really awesome asymmetry in an abstract game that has a lot of variety from play to play. Fit to Print is a game that I was really interested in when it came out, but that word replayability was one that I was definitely worried about. You're puzzling together different rectangles and there's a timed element. I didn't necessarily know if it would be a game that would be playable once or twice and then kind of lose its luster. But after playing it, I do feel like there are enough scoring considerations and then specific scoring objectives on certain tiles and things like that that you can draft that would really make this one interesting from play to play. There are also some different modes that you can utilize as well, and I just think overall this was a really fun time. Another game that I had a first play of is Bacon, and this is a ladder climbing card shedding game. We got to play it at 3 where it was purely competitive, but at 4 players and up, it does become a team game. Generally, I will say that this one wasn't my favorite, not only because of the team element, but overall, it didn't really do anything new or innovative. Tango, on the other hand, which is a 2-player trick-taking game, really blew me out of the water. I had never heard of this game before I saw it at my local used bookstore. I had talked about Tatsu a couple months back, which also has a 2-player version for trick-taking, where you have certain cards face up and then some face down, and everything's public information. Tango is like the best of both worlds because you do have some cards that are face up and available for your opponent to see, but then you also have your hand of cards. I found this one to be wildly engaging and I am so looking forward to playing it more. There are a lot of cooperative trick-taking games that I love it too, but this was one of the ones where it's competitive and I felt like it was just an absolutely amazing experience. So I am gunning to get this one played even more, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about it from me again soon. Marvel Dice Masters is based on an old bag building game named Quarriors, if you're familiar with that. And while I played Quarriors way back in the day, I really felt like it was just a 2-player game. Introducing more players made it a little too random and chaotic. Marvel Dice Masters definitely had that same kind of feel. I'm not sure if it was the cards we drafted or the way that our bag building worked specifically. It also might be a fact that I played Quarriors almost a decade ago when I first got into board gaming, and I have a lot more experience now, but I didn't feel that Marvel Dice Masters really added anything new or improved upon the Quarrior system, which I kind of hoped. So unfortunately, this one was a bit of a miss for me. Scram, while not a great game, did have really cute art. Each of the cats had unique art, and I just found it to be a really delightful experience overall. Tasso Banana is a dexterity game with bananas that are chunkier than I thought they would be. I really like dexterity and stacking games. This one didn't necessarily do anything really new. There were some opportunities for combos and unique ways of stacking the bananas, but it did feel very limiting with all of the pieces being the exact same and the number of pieces you have to place. Vampire Queen is another ladder climbing game. I was really looking forward to this one based on its high player count, up to 12 players, and the art and theme. However, I didn't find it to be that great. In fact, I was pretty done with it by the time we were finished. It might have been my group's lack of experience in understanding with the nuance of how the vampires hunted, which actually will put cards back into people's hands versus taking them out. But I will say that even at its best, it made for some very swingy scoring, because ending with those cards would end up giving you a lot more points, like 15 to 20 points each, sometimes both. And points are bad, by the way. The other point cards are not that high. So I can't say that this one was necessarily my favorite or one that I know that I'll be keeping. Bottle Imp, unfortunately, also had some very swingy scoring. It's a trick-taking game where the last person who ends with the bottle gets only negative points, whereas all the other players get positive points based on the tricks that they won. It kind of gave me a similar feeling to Sobek in terms of the scoring feeling really bad for one player. And although this game has gorgeous new updated artwork and I was really excited to try it, it was kind of a letdown based on that first play. Totemic is a 1 to 2 player take that game. There were a lot of different animals that you could utilize, but at the end of the day, I didn't personally have a huge attachment to it and found it to be a little bit lacking in terms of anything that made me want to come back to it that felt new and innovative. RNSM is a new bluffing word game for Button Shy, and I will be releasing a full solo preview on the channel, so stay tuned for that shortly. Tuned is an abstract 2-player game where you are putting out different animals and stacking them on top of each other. The rules were very straightforward, as you can probably imagine. I'm not sure that I quite grasped the strategy on the first play, or that it has a lot of legs to stand on as far as replayability goes, but there were some interesting elements there. The one thing that really did turn me off, though, was the size of the components. I felt like they could have been much smaller and more manageable. I personally would have enjoyed that more as an experience overall. But there you have it. Those are my board game plays from October 2024. Again, a huge shout out to Noble Knight Games for sponsoring the channel and giving me the flexibility to try and share a bunch of new games with y'all. So please feel free to use that link down below. It also directly supports the channel. And while you're down there, let me know what you've been playing this month, if there are things you're looking forward to playing through in this last part of the year, or games that you want to suggest for me to try out and look into. Thanks as always for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.